What's up, good people? As y'all see, I am by myself. Well, not necessarily by myself. I am dolo. And Tia's gone. So shout out to Tia. She's going on break. But we got a super special guest here with us this week. I'm excited. So I'm excited to have it here. I know Tia's probably like, please hear me, don't mess this up. please don't mess this up. But like I said, we got a guest today, Dr. Jeffery McCune. Jeffrey, you is a 99 grad.
Yeah, 99.
Yo, listen. So he was our Beta Omicron Distinguished Alum lecturer yesterday. And yeah, man, hey, there you go. What up, T?
Hey, T.
So yeah, man, he did a phenomenal job. See? I tell you, you see what I'm talking about? I knew it. And as soon as we got out, I was like, Tia, probably hear me, don't mess this up. But no, so I know what, I'm gonna let you talk
Good
more
to see
about
you again.
Talk about yourself, just kind of introduce yourself.
Sure.
Why you're here, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, I'm Professor Jeffery McCune. I am the director of the Frederick Douglass Institute for African American Studies at the University of Rochester, and I'm a professor in Black Studies. And really, really excited about being here. I've, like he said, I've been here several times since 1999, and today and yesterday I got to talk with students all over about what it means to be back on the hilltop. And so I'm just excited to be here and share the work and share in community and envision in some ways what Cornell can be for years to come.
Right. So let me start here, right? Come on now, Black Studies. So let me start here. And of course, y'all, if you got questions, T, I already know you want to line something up. But no, so let me start from the beginning, man. Like, so where you from? Like, how'd you get to Cornell? Like, tell us a little bit more about your background and
Awesome.
all that.
So yeah, I came from Chicago, South Side.
Woo, come on, South Side.
There's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of people here from Chicago, right? No, I'm just joking. A lot of Chicagolanders, though.
Right.
But I came from Chicago. My parents were really interested in me finding a school for me. I remember being a very excited music person. Like I was really like, I want to study voice. I want to go somewhere where I can get some money to study voice. And I had my heart set on going to Michigan. Big Ten.
Over there in Ann Arbor. Come on.
Yes, Big Ten, baby.
Yes.
And they were like, no.
Michigan was like, nah, you can't do that.
No. My parents.
Mine, they're like, nah, you're not going.
Michigan was like, come, please come. We got you. And I won't tell the whole story, but I'll say that there were a lot of opportunities at Michigan that made sense to me. Mm-hmm. But my parents made sense of me. Mm-hmm. Like they were like, look, you're a very outgoing person. I want you to be a big fish in a little pond. Mm-hmm. I want you to learn what it's like to build in small communities. Mm-hmm. And you can go anywhere in the world after that. Right? And I loved every minute of being in this small community.
Right.
Of course it was challenging, right? Mm-hmm. It's challenging for all Black folks who are trying to, survive in predominantly white institutions, PWIs. But I think I learned so much about leadership. I learned so much about academic study, and I learned so much about people. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have gotten that at Michigan. I would have just been a number.
Within the whole,
I could have got leadership skills somewhere, but
it's funny you talk about that, right? So I went to a small school as well. Shout out to Luther College, and I transferred in from SIU Carbondale. And yeah, if you
party school.
Listen, man,
party school.
There's a reason why I had to leave Carbondale. We won't talk about that on camera.
Okay.
No, but like you, right? Going to a small place, it was different. Mm-hmm. It was obviously not what I was used to. Same thing, kind of a big fish in a small pond. Well, at least I didn't kind of realize that until afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. And so the one thing I want to ask you is how did growing up in the city, specifically on the South Side, how did that help you with your transition coming here?
Oh, that's good.
To Mount Vernon.
So I believe that you gotta take your city with you, right? You gotta take your people with you, right? So I didn't come here trying to fit into this kind of larger white community, trying to be, some kind of like other person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I literally came here as a South Sider from Chicago
Right.
who went to Kenwood,
Mm-hmm.
lived my whole life in the South Side.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always blackity black. Like everything from kindergarten on, I went to African kindergarten, right? So everything I know is black.
Right.
Everything I teach is black, actually. So when I came here, I think Chicago teaches you a certain kind of resilience with dealing with white people, and whiteness, and white supremacy. It teaches you how to prepare yourself for what's to come.
Right.
And honestly, what I'm learning is if you're lucky, you'll survive it.
Yeah.
But what you just got to do is focus on doing what you're called to do as a black person in a white community. So it taught me some resilience. It taught me from the south side of Chicago, I took a lot of grit, right? Like hard work. Like this is what you get. Like I gotta do this thing. I gotta grind, right? That grinding spirit.
Right.
But it was also like Chicago was like a happening place. Like we had Michael Jordan.
Come on, Mike.
We had like 1987. We had the first black mayor, right? So we are audacious people coming from Chicago. We're like, look, I can do anything if I put my mind to it, right? Kanye and all that, right?
Right.
So many great things were happening in Chicago that I took that to mean that anywhere I went in the world, I can make it happen.
Right. So you talk about that grit, right, coming from Chicago, and once again, I'm connecting with that. Now, granted, I didn't grow up in the city, but just being in the area, certain parts of the Chicagoland area, you do have to have a certain grittiness, right? And so it's like folks may think, you're going to Mount Vernon, you're going to Cornell. What kind of grit do you truly need to go to rural Iowa? What kind of grit do you truly need to be like? It's going, and folks who've been to Mount Vernon or who've been to Iowa, especially small town Iowa, right? It is peaceful, right?
Yeah,
getting here, it's
low
quiet,
stress.
But being black in here, once again, I completely understand that. Like, could you tell me, like, why do you feel you needed that grit to be here? Where did that come from?
Totally. I mean, you always know when you come into PWIs, there's going to be some moment where your blackness is going to be a problem.
Come on.
Right? It's going to be a problem, and then you got to figure out how am I going to not be a problem,
right?
But then how am I going to address you making me the problem,
right? Right.
And who are my allies, right? And so we had about 32 black folks across campus, 20 of them actively black. I'm sorry, I should say that. I shouldn't say that.
Hey, T, I think we're going to get fired today.
Let me say what I meant.
T, I think we're going today.
So I think in every class, and I bet you even this one coming in, there's always a few people or more than a few people who have decided that to be amongst black folks is not what their aim was coming here, right? They wanted to integrate into the experience. And I think there's possibilities to do both, but some people choose, right? Because what we don't want to admit is that just like there's a lot of us that came from the South Side of Chicago, black experiences, there's also a cadre of folks who come to Cornell because Cornell actually looks a lot like the high schools that they went to, the boarding schools that they went to, the private schools that they went to. So they're like, this ain't no different. This is an extension of the Harley School, right? And so some people would choose to keep that population that they were used to. They didn't do black stuff at the high school they went to.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is there were about 22, 23 of us who would gather together and we would actually sit at what we call the black table. They call it the Baco table to try to be, but it was really the black table. Anybody, and we would sit at the black table, the black table, and we would talk business. We talk fun too. We talk a lot of mad stuff. Come on, like we bring it home. A lot of joking, a lot of having a lot of good times. But we also would talk about the business of like, I just came out of this class, and can you believe this mug said that Martin Luther King was X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Now, granted, some of that X, Y, and Z was true,
Right.
but we are in a different context where you're not going to tell me, you're not going to demonize.
You're not talking about Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
Not today.
Not today. And
right.
so we went ham and we figured out our places of building an agenda. And so that was really good. I think I learned some of that on the south side of Chicago in terms of organizing. You know, I worked a lot as a young person with Jesse Jackson and Operation Push and Jeremiah Wright and other folks and Farrakhan, who galvanized us as a collective. And I was a youth ambassador for a lot of these different organizations. And I came to college with that orientation. Like, I was like, look, this is how we organize.
Right.
You know, you got an idea?
Right.
You know, like, yeah, so sorry.
So, all right. So you talk, a lot about, so you brought up organizing. I'm glad you brought that up, right? Look, yes, D.
Yes.
I'm talking about the King. Not King, the King. And I can only imagine at that point, and like I said, you graduated in 99, but so I'm guessing you got here, fall of 94, 95, somewhere around there.
95.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, things have changed a little bit, but I'm going to assume that it wasn't as easy to find your space as a Black person here, right? And so how did you all create, and can you talk more about it? I know you mentioned it a little bit. How did y'all create that space? What were the things that you were involved in, or what were the things that you created to make that space for you with all of your identities?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of support people here, I have to tell you. I mean, one of the things was the person who was in your position, right, at the time, Eddie, who is now big time. Eddie,
Come on, Dr. Moore with the WPC.
Eddie Moore, yeah. And there were so many folks who were like, we want to help and assist and get you there. There was the Baco house, right? We had the Black house, right? And that was a thing. We used to chill up in there. Some people used to sleep up in there.
I mean,
and I don't think that's here anymore, right?
It's so what we have. So we have that blue Baco house. That one isn't necessarily open
for use.
Yeah, for use, right? But then
it was on its last leg when I was here.
So. Yeah, it is. The legs are gone now, right? But we do have the Armstrong house which is offline right now, but because they're doing some renovations, doing some cleanup with it. So that was actually for a time. It was student housing for the Baco Mojo LLC.
Oh wow!
And so this spring or this fall, we took it offline, doing some renovations and plan to open it up, kind of reimagine a couple of different things.
Like affinity housing.
Yeah. So we had that, and then also the cottage, which it was typically kind of housed with the Twerg LLC.
What's Twerg?
So the third wave resource group. So for lack of a better word, is our feminist group on campus.
Women, gender, sexuality center or something.
Yeah. And so we're kind of reimagining that, right? So like I said, like that, like what do you all create that space? Like what would you all use to create that space for you all? Or like how did you create that space for you all?
Yeah, so we created it in our dorms. Let's be clear.
Right.
Some of us had larger suites, and so we would do that. I mean, we did some really creative stuff. I don't even know if half the stuff is
had to.
Impossible. We had to. Like, I remember we had a party in the lounge of Pfeiffer because it had the biggest open space, right? Got a little trouble for that.
I mean,
college kids, but like, college music,
I mean,
and we want to go overtime.
Right.
So, but we also communed here, right? Crystal Clark was here.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a prominent Indigenous woman who definitely was part of our Black community, and in some ways was like a mother to many of us, or auntie, if you want to do that,
right?
Or maybe just Crystal Clark, right? Don't even auntie her or mother,
right?
But I would say people did position her in that way,
right?
And then we also made a lot of waves in terms of Baco, right? Like we had Baco organizational stuff and events,
right?
But we also partnered with people in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
I remember we took trips to partner with their organization.
Okay.
At
Co
College.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of collaboration. But the other piece that we did, we took trips together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Chicago. I'm like, y'all want to go to Chicago? You from KC? You from where? Let's go.
Right.
Another piece that we did, I probably should say this out loud. If you watch it, if you watch this, I'm just gonna say it because we was young then. Johnny, they can't come from us now. But Johnny Johnson, and our hue dynamic, our hues are about the same as Hemi and mine, right? But one of the ways that we would make socialization happen was because Johnny Johnson was 22 or 21, and Johnny was a senior, I was a junior.
Lord have mercy. Yeah.
He said, take my ID. Because these white people ain't gonna even look. I don't care how dark your shade, how light your shade, whatever. They're not gonna look. Right. The lovely part about this is one of the moments we could strategically use black racism.
I've used that several times. Just use my ID. Don't worry about it. You good. Come on.
You good. And guess what? I was in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Chicago.
Come on.
Wherever I need to go to find some of my social world, and others were doing the same thing. So that was another way we did it on the fringes. But the more formal was on-campus activity. It was creating spaces in our own dorms. And it was just building community. And largely, I actually want to say this out loud. I felt like we were building community through difference.
Yeah.
It wasn't about similarities, right? I mean, we had folks, working class folks who spoke different dialects. We had country folk.
Come on.
Right? We had queer folk. We had trans folk. We had, femme folk. We had masculine identified folk. We had a whole bunch of people in our group, right? We had folks, rolling up like in all types of fashion. I'm thinking about some Pacific people, as my grandma would say, some Pacific people. Who,
you're right, Tim. You better tell us how to find these spaces.
But so I feel like, we made community through difference, and we appreciated the differences that we had, and we used that as an opportunity to learn from each other. One of my brothers, who unfortunately is no longer with us, Jesse Lawrence Warren, who came to this institution always feeling out of place.
Yeah.
And we were really trying hard to make Jesse feel like
comfortable.
You're at home with us.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever felt that, and that's always going to be the case. Some people are just not going to feel at home in a place that's not home, right? But it's also not about that. I went to give a talk in class today. Sorry, I'm talking. This is a long answer.
No, you good, bro.
But a student asked, said, how did you do all this and still stay safe? How do you talk all this stuff and still feel safe? And I said, so part of my disobedience is that I am not actually interested in the framework of safety. Because when I was born, I was not safe. I was not safe. Like literally because of the lack of health care given to my mother, prenatal care, I was not safe. I could have died at birth, right? Literally because of my abusive father,
not safe, right?
Was not safe.
So safety wasn't.
Safety is not a question for me. Like I'm not trying to find safety. Y'all can't make me safe. I can make me safe. And so I find safety here in the authenticity of myself.
Right.
But in this world, in this community, I'm not looking for safety, but I am looking for community. I am looking for solidarity. I am looking for a radical, inclusion.
Right.
But that don't necessarily make me safe.
So
you got any bottled water? I'm in your house, so
I'm about to say,
Tia, where the bottled water at? Because I know you would normally have some for me.
You know what? Don't you stop. Don't get her going. She's gonna come on here and start messing with me. And we do got a water thing around the corner. I knew it. Some told me to grab it.
Is it empty?
No, it's not empty.
Hold on.
Tia, don't you come on here and start now. I know you're gonna come over here and mess with me. But as he get his water, like I'm gonna be honest with y'all, like hearing that word, but I'm not hearing that thought about. I'm not thinking about safety. Like that's a word, because I hear that a lot about with some of our students. They feel unsafe, right? I don't feel safe, and I get it, right? And I get it. Now everybody everybody don't wants to feel safe.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, but.
And I get everybody wants to feel safe,
but it's not always.
It's not always possible.
Yeah.
And
especially I think as a black person in this space.
Oh my God, I think we have sold people a bad bill of goods, telling them that we're going to see. We even have hot coffee and tea. I would have hooked you up.
Yeah, she would.
But I would say it's okay to desire safety, but I actually think that is a sign of some of our limitations as parents. I teach this young man, you probably heard my kid in the background. I teach him, these environments are what they are.
Yeah.
And I'm instilling in you a sense of security so that you don't need other people's safety.
Right.
Right? Right? That he is secure himself. He'll tell you, if I said, say it loud, he would know. I'm black and I'm proud. Right? He would just do it, right? Because it's in him since he was 18 months. Right? And so part of the work that I think we have to do as parents and as community members is stop selling safety. Right? Because this is not a safe society. This is not, we can't act like this is a space where being black is not a problem. Right? It is a problem for them, not us. And if it's not a problem for you, you are actually more secure. You're better. You're safer. Where it gets dangerous for us is when we also start thinking that being black is a problem. Right? And that was my issue with the other 13. It was like, y'all think blackness is a problem. And the community blackness, like communal blackness, is a problem. You're worried about what it's going to look like to them. But you're not worried about what it means for us. And what it means for us is actually important. It is important that we're in this community because I do think white people do need to have varying encounters with black people and that they need to understand what it looks like, what blackness is like in real time. Right? That's good. Because real time is great. That media stuff, if that's your only blackness, you kind of messed up.
You mess yourself up.
So I think we got to have community in all types of ways. But right now we're talking about black people. And so for me, I think that sense of safety has to come from within and from knowing oneself.
So how has your time here and even a little time after has kind of come into your work? Earlier, you mentioned the word disobedience, and we'll get to that. You're talking in a second, but how has that shaped your work professionally moving forward? How has that shaped the things you've studied, the things your work you've done professionally? How has that guided you in your work? I stumped him, y'all. Got him.
Yeah.
No.
What it is that I'm thinking about which way to go because I think I always feel outsider, right? Insider, outsider, right? I would say that I'm an insider, outsider. But the marginal part of me, the part that is always feeling like on edge, I think that is a part of me that I've learned to pronounce and not mute. Right. So the way I think about the world, I know it's different. I know that my philosophy on life, black life, is different than most and others, right? And definitely of the dominant. But I have to lean into that. And that's part of the disobedience is leaning into your authentic self, leaning into the blackness as you know and understand it, right? And leaning into understanding of the self that is beyond what anybody can imagine for you. So that's my anchor. My anchor is that that life is better for me because I'm not interested in
putting on the show,
the laws of the land,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When you're interested in the laws of the land, that means I show up to this interview, I'll be like, well, folks, you know, I'm Dr. McCune. And, you know, like what? Like, no. Like, honestly, like, we have to be bold.
Yeah.
And being bold means cutting through all the minutia.
Yeah.
And I think for me, my career has been one where I am an honest person.
Yeah.
I am an authentic person.
Right.
I'm a person who believes in emotionally intelligent leadership.
Right.
Right. I don't believe in just functional leadership, like machine-oriented leadership. Right. I believe that it takes this type of work to be productive.
Right.
You know, and so
so you talk about being authentic, right? And so I think I told you the story last night. And I use this story as an example on terms of just being yourself, right? So you had a young lady, shout out to Sierra. So graduated last year, young black young lady from the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. So she gets here her freshman year, and all her peoples were her mama, stepdad, dad. I think her stepmom was here too, her sister. I mean,
I love it.
You know how it is. The whole I was like, they brought everybody from the Bahamas. I'm like, okay. And so I'm standing over there by OSAM, and I'm talking to him, just kind of getting him, you know, acclimated to being on campus and so on and so on. So her mother asked me, you know, what's the one advice you would give my daughter moving forward coming here? Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here, I'm just like, you want one thing, lady? Yeah. So I was like, and I said, be yourself. Mm-hmm. And they was like, what do you mean? I said, just be yourself. Yeah. And like, as long as what you're doing is not detrimental to yourself and others, be yourself, because at the end of the day, the folks who don't like you because you're black, because you're from the Bahamas, because of insert whatever it is, they're not gonna like you regardless. You can cure cancer,
still ain't gonna like you.
You can cure AIDS, you can cure world hunger, you can find world peace. They still ain't gonna like you. And right now, you can cure COVID. No matter what you do, those are the folks. And unfortunately, those folks are here. They're small, but they're here. So just be yourself. And that creates this space where you can be. And you feel more comfortable. It's easier to find a sense of belonging, right? It's easier to connect with people who are different from you, because you know you're walking into this space like, yo, I'm good. Now, I know it's hard to get to that point.
It is.
Because at that time, I think she was a transfer. So I think she was 20 at the time. So you know, I'm talking to a 19, 20-year-old young person. Mm-hmm. But to your point, I'm just going to be me, man. And then,
but see, that's the aims, right? Mm-hmm. Your aim has to be you authentically.
Yeah.
You may not get there while you're at Cornell College, right?
Absolutely.
You might not get there until you're 27,
Absolutely.
30 years old. But if you are practicing every day how to be more you, I promise you, by the time you're my age, you will be saying some of the same stuff I'm saying. Look, I'm not turning back. This is who I am, right? This is who I'm becoming, right? I don't believe in this is who I am, but this is who I'm becoming, and who I've become at this point for this point in time, right? And so I think part of it is learning that early. Mm-hmm. And college is a place to, I love you saying, be you. I wish somebody had told me that when I started. Like, just be you. I was like, no, I'm going to come here and I'm going to talk a little bit like this. And I'm going to be like, hi, guys, I'm Jeffrey. It's the first month I'm here. How you doing? Right. You know, I did all that, right? And I remember it was my first orientation, right on this lawn. Mm-hmm. We all sat in a circle.
Right.
Oh, my God, all these memories come
Come on.
And I remember thinking to myself, how do I show up, right, to these people? Mm-hmm. I wasn't thinking how do I show up authentic. I was thinking how do I show up to these people, right? And I showed up to them, you know, all these rumors about what Chicago people are like. Yeah. I was like, I don't want to be that. So I'm Jeffrey from the suburbs. You know, how are you doing?
You was from Kenwood,
Southside Chicago. You know. For real. And I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like I was also studying classical music,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so classical music teaches you a certain kind of posture
Mm-hmm.
and performance, right? And all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn it, right? And so that's good for recitals, and like it's appropriate.
Right.
But when you're meeting amongst people, they want to see your authentic self.
They want to see Jeffrey.
They
want
want
to
to
see
Jeffrey.
him. They don't want that. They don't want to see. They want to meet Dr. McCune.
Right? No.
Those
people are interesting, but they're not as interesting as you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm at. It's like I don't want to be a figuration, right? As I was talking about yesterday. I don't want to be a figure. I want people to see me.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and as you said, it is hard, right? It's an ongoing process, but at the least, right, you have to say, okay, I'm going to try to be my best self of me possible, and then moving forward, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna switch it up, not necessarily switch it up, but I want to switch it up. I want to get to talking about your talk yesterday, because like we had a good conversation last night with John Hart over dinner, and just the word disobedience, right? Mm-hmm. And so I mean, get disobedient things, learning to read again. Mm-hmm. Like, tell me about that. Like, why, or tell us about that. Like, why disobedience? Because as I told you last night, my grandmother, God bless rest her soul, she was always like, gotta be obedient. And I was like, how can I be obedient, man? And then so I'm looking at this, I'm like, yo, this man is telling me to be disobedient, and it makes sense. Could you tell us about that work? Tell us about what you talked about yesterday and why disobedience and all that.
Yeah. So I'll start with the after the colon, because I think that's where you can start. Mm-hmm. If you mention, you're gonna hear me yelling at my son if he keeps moving around acting crazy. You just calm down over there.
Hey, this is an
real
ICF show.
Hey,
do what you got to do. All right, T. Talk to you soon.
It's so good to see you. Can't wait to catch up for real. But yeah, I think that learning how to read again is kind of a riff on making America great again. Right. And learning how to read again is right. My assumption actually is different than the one Make America Great Again assumes that America was once great, right? I'm actually assuming that we ain't learned how to read.
Come on.
Right? And we need to learn how to read again.
Come on.
Right? Meaning that the way in which we have decided to read the world, the way we've been given, the instructions that we've been given to read the world are actually bad instructions.
Right.
Right? And so instead of reading what it really means to be Black in this country, what police violence is really, like, when did it start?
Yeah.
Right? It started an enslavement.
Right.
Right? The capture of Black people, the limitations of their freedoms. Right? That continues.
Right.
Let's talk about the vote. Right? People are still not able to vote freely.
Come on.
People are still not able to speak freely. People are not even able to read freely, ban books. Right? So we have to learn how to read again so that we see what's really happening within our society and within our world. And the only way to do that is to disobey all the folks who told you to read the same way.
Right.
Right? And sometimes objects and things will force us to read that which we never thought we would.
Right.
And so I brought up, like, as an example yesterday, this
But
object.
you killed it, by the way. I was like, come on, you killed it, by the way. I appreciate
you so much. Thank you. The cowrie shell, which is this shell that was transported with Black bodies across the ocean. I actually didn't mention this, but like, just imagine how many Black bodies didn't actually get to carry the cowrie shells, and the cowrie shells are at the bottom of the ocean, right? And they are mixed in with the other shells of the ocean, right? Which is also symbolic for the ways in which our bodies are part of the ocean is part of us, right? All of that. But I think what's really important about the cowrie shell is that it was once a signature item of Black people's ingenuity, creativity, and spirituality, that gets stolen and taken and made into a good of transference to actually purchase slaves. And then I fast forward to a whole 1980s, 1990s uptake of cowrie shells as a way to express one's gender and sexuality, right? And the way in which people identified each other as same gender loving in the 80s and 90s, to make a connection between these bodies that are both marginalized and treated in a way that they don't have a history,
Mm.
right? But the shell is telling us, oh, you got history.
No, you got history.
And you got relationship.
Right.
And this blackness, queerness thing is actually redundant because all Black families in the midst of this maritime oceanic, movement, was subjected to violence.
Right.
Right. And so we are still here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining that is the male person.
Yeah.
That's dropping off some mail.
and you're trying to get in.
It also might just be me saying some good stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, you saying that, brother.
One thing you touched on yesterday, right? Talked about like the queerness of just within the Black community, right? And it kind of threw me. It was like, no, that ideology has kind of built the community. If I'm saying this correctly, right? And when you said that or whatever, I was like, man, I want to dive into that more. Like, help me understand. I'm like, I need him to help me understand it because y'all know how, unfortunately, or fortunate, however you want to look at it, right? And depending on how you learn from it, being queer as a Black person, nah, bro, you can't talk about it. Don't you bring it up. Don't you even sniff anything about queer. And so when you said that, it's through. It's through.
Yeah.
Help me understand, like, what was
it's helpful.
How'd you put that together?
Yeah, so this is the thing about this is how we have to learn how to read again because we've been hoodwinked.
Come on, bamboozled. Let us stay. Come
on. And truly we have, because we've been given, even Black queer people have been given this story that we came late into the game of LGBT anything, right? And so our families are like, oh yeah, no, brought that LGBT stuff to us.
Right.
I mean, it used to be a white people thing. Right. And I'm like, Uncle,
no.
What was happening was Black people was always queer. And when I say queer, I'm not talking about sexuality. But because we were always so queered, we didn't need to articulate our sexual queerness because our Black queerness was always apparent and readily available to us.
Right.
And so a lot of times what happened is we were already saying, oh my God, when Daphne ain't got no man, I'm really sad she ain't got no man, brothers out here, they doing X, Y, and Z, we ain't seen them, right? And part of what that lament is not really about what she's saying. It's actually a lament about the social conditions under which it is difficult for Black women and Black men in this case to have constitutive relationships that have all the elements that might create success, because of the conditions under which we live are so well ghettoized and made depravity, right? And full of deprivation that they can't actually have good relationship. And so what she's expressing is, oh my God, I can't find a mate because the mates I would want have certain type of material resources and certain type of emotional resources that our society does not enable in Black men. And therefore, I am in a queer position. I am in an awkward outsider position that I'm trying to make sense of. And I haven't learned to make sense of it. And I haven't even had the language. Like most people wouldn't say that's a queer position. They would just say, I'm just messed up. Right? I'm just messed up.
Something wrong.
And something wrong with me. Something wrong with us.
Right.
No. It is the conditions under which we live that have created a impossibility for full, whole, intimate relationships amongst people. And I'm not just gonna say male, female, just even queer people are trying to understand. I'm looking for brothers, right? And if I'm a Black man who only dates Black men, conditions under which we live make it very difficult for that relationship, especially since we both are in fear of our lives every day.
Come on.
Right? Black lesbians in fear of their lives every day. Right? Black trans folks in fear of their lives every day. We all are in this queer position, and it's doubly so and triply so for those who occupy multiple identities. And so part of what I'm trying to map for people is this is redundant. And the best thing that we can do is embrace our Black, queer, trans sisters and brothers because their lives are actually articulating the pain of Blackness in real time.
Right. Yo, listen, man. As we gotta close up. Look, man.
You know, I go off right there.
Look, man, we can probably go for another hour if we could, man. But I want to say I appreciate you bringing a different perspective in terms of disobedience, just how we use the word queer, the intersectionalities of us, because I think that's one thing that we often forget, right? That we have different identities,
and
they all intersect one way or the other, right? And we don't all have the same lived experience, right? And I say this a lot, Tia and I are both Black, but Tia is a Black woman, I'm a Black man. Tia's from Kansas City, I'm from Waukegan. Tia, has children, I don't. But we all have different identities, different ways that we navigate this world, but there are some similarities. And going back to support and going back to creating a space and trying to make sure that we create this space where folks can just be themselves. Can just be. That's the one way we can at the least just be civil. That I just want to get to a point where folks are just civil. And so I appreciate all the work you're doing, man. I appreciate you coming. Chit-chatting with us for a little bit. So how can folks find you? How can folks connect with you?
Absolutely. Look, I'm Dr. Jeffery to you, Dr. Jeffery 2, the number 2 U, on Instagram and Twitter. So please shout me out, tweet me out, or message me, please. Especially if you are a Cornell College student or alum that just wants to talk about the future of everything. I'm here for that. I really appreciate you having me. This has been great. Thank you, Tia, for chiming in as well.
Listen, we're gonna have you. We gotta have you back again.
Yes, have me back. I appreciate it.
We're gonna have you back again once again. I appreciate everybody. Tia and I will be back next week. Y'all be good. Be safe. God bless y'all.